I vow to renounce emotional connections to those of my life prior to guardianship.
YAHSHI skipped supper to get a head start on studying, but the vastness of the library overwhelmed him. He traced his fingers along the spines of countless books as he walked down the aisle, feeling like a droplet in an ocean of knowledge. The air darkened, and rain began to pelt the windows in a sudden storm.
The sky weeps with us.
His thoughts turned to his father, and the guilt of breaking the promise he had made on selection day tugged at his heartstrings. He hoped his father had forgiven him by now, but in the case that he hadn't, YAHSHI assured himself that telling Martu about his goal to honor his mother's sacrifice during their eventual reunion would heal everything. As he turned the corner and entered a new aisle, he nearly tripped over Dice, who was sitting on the floor.
Sorry.
Dice turned a page of his book without looking at YAHSHI.
The sky weeps with us.
You've heard it before?
Dice finally looked up, offering YAHSHI a chilling stare.
No, I haven't.
The rain intensified, and Dice stood abruptly before dusting off his pants. After taking a single step away, he looked back at YAHSHI. A brief moment passed before he shook his head in what looked like disappointment. Without another word, he walked away, leaving YAHSHI alone in the aisle.
Where are you going?
Dining hall. I'm hungry.
The slam of the library door sent a vibration through the air, and YAHSHI noticed goosebumps on his arms. The sky weeps with us had always been a saying exchanged between him and his father alone. Yet Dice had spoken as though the phrase meant something to him too. When YAHSHI returned to his quarter, Pinto was sitting at his desk, writing under the candlelight.
Have you really been documenting everything in that book?
Just the important parts.
After changing into his pajamas, YAHSHI crawled into bed. The warm silk against his skin nearly coaxed him into slumber, but he fought his exhaustion and sat up again. Pinto was finally in a good mood after being sick and grumpy for 3 days, and YAHSHI figured he should talk to him.
Congratulations on your match today.
Thanks.
Pinto stopped writing and closed his journal.
I'm sorry you lost yours.
It's okay.
Pinto stood from his wooden chair, surprisingly stable on his feet, and took a seat on the edge of his bed.
Where were you during recreation time?
I was studying in the library. I'm not at all prepared for the exam.
At least you hardly reacted to the first dose. If you can get past the next few days, you'll be at a huge advantage.
I doubt that.
Pinto lowered his head, the gloominess returning.
What's wrong?
Dr. Blimmery said that every cycle, there's a few trainees who can't fight the poison. I'm worried I might be one of them.
Of course you're not. 2 guys were filtered, remember?
And if it weren't for VELL, I would have been number 3. She can train and you can study, but I have no control over how my body reacts to the poison. Out of all things to get me filtered, I never thought it'd be a glass of juice.
You're being too hard on yourself.
You don't get it, YAHSHI. I'm hanging from a ledge right now. The only reason I earned my pin today is because Sana accepted my deal.
What deal?
In our poison states, we would surely lose against anyone else. We took a risk and showed up late, hoping Commander Ross would pair us together by default. That would at least give us both a fair shot at winning.
YAHSHI recalled how Commander Ross had referred to Pinto and Sana as clever. Surely the Guardian had caught on to their trick, but instead of disqualifying them, he honored their plan.
The reality is, I keep getting lucky. VELL saved me and Commander Ross spared me. But that won't last forever. Something always goes wrong eventually.
Pinto shot YAHSHI a questioning glance before standing with a wince.
I'll get it.
YAHSHI hopped out of bed and hurried to the door. When he opened it, VELL greeted him with bloodshot eyes. Her hair had been cut into choppy shards, each clump a different length.
Can I come in?
YAHSHI stepped aside, and she rushed into the room, smiling briefly at Pinto before taking a seat on YAHSHI's bed. It was strange to see her wearing the same pajamas he and Pinto wore every night.
What's that?
Pinto eyed the package of crackers in her hands, and she tossed it over to him. He tried to catch it with his fatigued arms, but missed. The package hit his chest before landing on his blanket.
You raved about them during our first supper here.
You have good memory.
Pinto grabbed the package and opened it.
Thanks. It's nice to have real food again. Dr. Blimry kept bringing me porridge with activated charcoal. Yeah, right. For all I know, it's poisoned too. I've been pouring it down the drain.
If you had actually eaten the porridge, you'd be feeling much better by now.
Or I'd be dead. Is it really worth the risk?
Pinto took a bite of the crackers, and Yashi's gaze returned to Vell's hair. He took a seat next to her.
How's your shoulder?
Not bad. It'll be fine tomorrow.
And your hair?
It looks awful.
I know. And I'm sorry for showing up like this. It's stupid.
She fiddled with the edges of her pajama sleeves.
I didn't know where else to go. And I was talking to YAHSHI earlier, and I guess I feel so displaced here.
Pinto was about to take another bite, but when Vell reached for her hair, he set the package down.
My hair's pretty heavy when I tie it up, so I thought maybe if I cut it, then I don't know. Every night I think about what might happen if I don't get stronger.
She leaned forward, her face falling into her shaky fingertips.
My mother needs the pension for her medicine.
Yashi stared at the floor, recalling Vell's panicked reaction to the news of his mother's death.
I'm so sorry, Vell.
How bad is it?
With the money, I assume she's doing better now. But if I get filtered, my family would go back to scrambling for solutions. It would be all my fault.
Pinto stared at his trembling fingers before rolling them into a fist. He walked to his desk and shuffled through one of the drawers.
What are you doing?
Pinto raised a pair of scissors.
Fixing Vell's hair.
Vell shook her head.
You really don't have to.
Relax. I used to cut my sister's hair all the time.
She tugged on a clump of hair.
Well, I suppose it can't get any worse.
No, it really can't.
Vell dragged a chair to the middle of the room and took a seat. Pinto started to separate her hair into sections, studying them carefully before making any cuts.
I didn't know you had a sister. Is she young, or was she there during the... when...
She's 13, so yes, she lost her eye. Luckily, she was only 2 during the war and doesn't remember a thing.
Pinto pulled a clump of hair taut and snipped it shorter.
We're quite close, actually. She's the only reason I feel awful about being here.
Is that why you've been writing? For her?
I plan to give her my journal eventually. It can't make up for the lost time, but it's the best I can do.
She's lucky to have you. I always wished I wasn't the oldest.
The conversation flattened for a while, the air filled with nothing but the snipping of scissors.
Sorry, it doesn't usually take me this long. The poison is still...
Serum?
To Yashi's surprise, Pinto chuckled.
It's okay. No one's expecting you to heal overnight.
It certainly feels like it, though.
Pinto stopped trimming and stepped aside.
Looks better.
She reached for her hair, which now fell evenly right above her shoulders.
Thanks, Pinto.
Consider it payment for the crackers, and for punching me the other day.
After cleaning up, the trio sat together in silence. Vell's gaze drifted to the door a few times, but she hesitated to leave. Yashi realized how lonely the academy must have been for her without a roommate. He had never thought of it before.
You can stay if you want to.
Pinto raised a palm.
Oh, that's probably not...
I'll stay.
Fine.
After putting out the lantern on his nightstand, Yashi peeled away the top blanket from his bed and spread it across the floor.
Sorry.
I don't mind.
Vell climbed onto Yashi's bed while Pinto got into his own. Yashi lay on the floor and wrapped the blanket around him like a cocoon. He stared at the ceiling and imagined stars in the darkness.
You know what? I'm feeling better tonight.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's about time I start showing up to class again. I've missed far too many lectures.
I can lend you my notes.
Are you sure?
Yashi smiled. He knew exactly what Vell was planning.
You can look through mine too. In exchange, help us study for the research exam.
What is this? Some kind of alliance?
Exactly.
If we combine our strengths, we can make the final 5. All 3 of us.
All 3 of us. That doesn't sound too bad.
So, are you in?
Absolutely.
YAHSHI waited until Pinto's and VELL's breathing settled before unraveling the blanket around him. He stood, relit his lantern, and opened his nightstand drawer. The mittens glowed in the candlelight, haunting him. He snatched them and made his way downstairs to the common room. After quietly passing the door to the guardian quarters, he unbarred the front door and stepped outside, lantern in hand. The candlelight guided him across the courtyard and down the pathway to the nearby road. Not far from the ice house and stable, he opened the lantern door and held the mittens over the flame. An orange dot marked the wool, growing until the heat seeped into his fingers and the mittens were fully ablaze. He tossed them onto the dirt and watched the fabric burn. Alora's yellow mittens, brighter than ever, crackled in the silent night.
I have to win. From now on, no more hallucinations. No more voices.
YAHSHI heard footsteps approaching, but he didn't raise his chin to face the interrupter. Cal's boots came to a stop next to his.
You don't need my help anymore. I'm proud of you.
Goodbye, Cal.
Good job, YAHSHI.
He blinked, and her boots disappeared. Belladonna, Book 1, Nightshade Academy. Written and narrated by Torrefranca. Produced by Torrefranca and Wilson Hensley. Edited and mastered by Juan Pablo Diaz.
How did we get here? Something went wrong. We worked hard for this life that we don't want at all.
Cover art by Mad Studio. Score by Gita Puspita Asri. Theme song composed and produced by James Sinclair-Stott. Starring Jason Brown, Anthony Andreas Echeverri, Philip Kryanov, Melissa White, Alex Bowie, Patrick Viersba, Julia Risto, David John Bors, Connor Blanc, Cody Keel, Ellie Chua, Ben Autry, Walter Mack.
If it's really true that the sky weeps with us, if it's really true that heroes live in stars.
Featuring the voices of Gwyneth Evans, Jeff Rosenau, Lucas Hensley, Levi Titus, Angie Eggers, Willem Degar, Alison Prophet, Maria Palmo. Nightshade Academy is produced in association with Lost Island Press.